Hi, this is John Reed of johnerp.com. I just filmed 3 videos, and none of them had anything to do with SAP whatsoever. Two were about email management, and one was about how much I can't stand Facebook for small businesses. Uh, so you might enjoy any of those. They're on my channel. But I wanted to do at least one on SAP, so I thought I would talk to you a little bit about what makes a good SAP resume. Um, truth be told, I'm no longer an SAP recruiter, but I was for a number of years, and I manage recruiting firms. I've seen literally thousands of SAP resumes over the years, and I've come to identify certain characteristics that I think really help a resume to rise to the top. Now, of course, we should point out that in the so-called social networking area, there's many ways in which resumes are no longer needed anymore, and a lot of the best jobs come to you through your network, and they never really get listed, or you never had to submit a resume, or it became a little more of a formality. But it's still important, and I think it's good to remember that even if you have an in on a job, you should still keep in mind that you're still probably going to have your paperwork passed to someone who doesn't know you, and your paperwork needs to speak for itself. So you want a quality resume. Now, your LinkedIn profile will be one example of kind of an online profile that's very similar to a resume, and so some of this advice you could probably apply to your online profiles as well. So people want to talk about different kinds of resumes. To be honest with you, really a chronological resume is what we're looking for in most instances. Unless you have bizarre gaps in your work history, go chronological with your most recent experience at the top and go back. And what we're looking for more than anything else is a continuity of skills between project to project. You want to show how you've established expertise in a particular area by doing it again and again. In this case, redundancy is a really good thing because it shows you've established mastery. Now, detail is important, especially on your most recent positions. You don't want a 10-page resume because no one cares what you were doing in 1972. And if you want to see references to resumes like that, check out my book Resumes from Hell, where I went into the how not to the worst resumes ever made, but that's not the topic here. In here, you're talking about a 3-page resume or so, or maybe 2. Don't do a 1-page resume, and here's why. A 1-page resume isn't going to give enough keyword traction and enough detail. We want to see some of that detail. You want to see some of the specifics of some of the skills you work with. And do your best to quantify those skills. Try to show a business understanding of your skills. Talk about how much time you saved or helped your team save on a particular project, or a deadline that you met, or when you hit budget, or when you increased revenues by doing this or that. So try to find a way to quantify your skills. Now, people often ask me, how much should I be customizing my resume for each position? The answer is that you shouldn't have to customize it too much, but there are definitely times where, if there's a particular software program you've had a little bit of exposure to, but it's not on your resume, but it's a nice to have on a job order, yeah, maybe you should add that in. But add it into the context of your work experience. I don't like to see a bunch of skills that aren't tied to particular positions. Tie your skills into specific jobs and contexts. And don't worry about flowery objectives at the top of your resume. Unless your objective is very specific, like seeking sales management position in Baltimore, Maryland, get rid of the objective. Don't want to see the objective. Don't want to see all the meaningless, glowing phraseology of results-oriented, achiever, seek snoop. Get rid of all that crap from the top of the resume. If you want to have a brief skills summary, a few sentences, that's fine. Then get into the meat of your job experience right on that first page. And remember that putting enough skills detail on the resume might help you, because in the future you may become part of some databases where you would get pinged and people would contact you based on those skills. So that's why you add good contextual keywords about what you've done in the past, and all that's probably going to add up to a quality resume. Now, while I don't recommend customizing the resume all that much, I do think it's useful to have a couple resumes if you really have 2 different hats that you wear. A classic example of this would be either a hands-on in a management capacity. So you might have an SAP resume that's more geared towards your hands-on implementation skills, and you might have another that's more geared towards management. And there's a very specific reason for that, which is that people interviewing for managers, they want to see management skills. And people interviewing for hands-on positions, they might actually get a little turned off if they feel like you're too much of a manager, They would want someone who might be open to a more reasonable salary, for example, or be easier to work with, not as much of a, I got to be running the show type of mentality. So I think having a couple resumes when you have two distinct areas of skill can be good. Another classic example can be the difference between kind of a sales person's resume and a management resume. So if it's sales, but you're also a sales manager, then dividing those two things up, showing performance on the one resume on the sales side and management on a different version, that can be another good distinction. But where you're going to get a lot of the sizzle around customizing your resume is in the cover letter that you write. And the cover letter for the particular position is going to highlight existing strengths on the resume and talk also about that particular company and talk a little bit about the job you're applying for, why you think you're a good fit, a little bit of context about the company to show you've done your homework if that information is available, and making your case, kind of guiding the reader through the resume a little bit, saying here's the strengths that apply to this position, here's how I can make a unique contribution. So it might surprise you to hear I don't recommend wasting a lot of time customizing a resume, but I don't. I think pretty standard resumes can be okay. But I do think customizing the cover letter is important, and then make sure that all the skills you want to call attention to do exist on your resume in the context of your work experience. And if you do that, I think you'll have a lot of success with your resume. And in this job market, we need all the edge we can get. So I hope this video helped you to think about your SAP resume. This is John Reed of JohnnyERP.com.